Shalom, Most High in Christ blessed. In today's class is Faith in Alms, and we're just going to jump right into the subject. We're going to start with Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 13 through 14.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 5 and verse 13. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work.
So the Most High gave us 90% of our week to do our work and to do everything that we need to do. Read on.
6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God.
So on the seventh day is our day of rest. Go to Deuteronomy 28 and verse 48. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48. Because we got in trouble. We got in trouble with the Most High because we didn't want to keep the commandments. We want to work every day, every single day. We've been conditioned to just get up and grind and go and do whatever we got to do just to make money. And the Most High wanted us to rest. So one of the punishments that he gave us is in Deuteronomy chapter 28. Read.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
So since we didn't want to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, he said, now we're going to have to serve our enemies. For what?
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things.
So in the want of all things, we're going to have to serve our enemies to get it. So that means when you're born, when you die, and in between that, you have to serve another nation, the so-called white man, for everything that we want. Now, go to Psalms chapter 104 and verse 23. Because the point of the subject is to show that our labors won't be in vain. I know a lot of times we don't get that appreciation, especially as men. We don't get that appreciation that we need here on this earth for the things that we're doing. But I also want you to keep in mind that all your labors is not just for you and it's not just being unseen. Read that, verse 23.
The book of Psalms, chapter 104 and verse 23. Man goeth forth unto his work, and to his labor until the evening.
So we pretty much work most of the day, more than half of the day. And then at night, we're preparing to go to work again so we can do it all over again. Go to Ephesians. Go to Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 28. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 28. And it's useful that we do work because idleness brings sin. When we don't have nothing to do, we figure out things that we're going to do. And most of the time with us, it's sin. We're going to end up selling drugs because we got to eat. We got to provide for our families. We're going to end up stealing, killing, robbing somebody just so we can have things. But go ahead, read on. Read Ephesians.
The book of Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 28. Let him that stole steal no more.
So if you're out committing crimes, if you're doing things to feed yourself, if you're stealing, robbing, do it no more. Read.
But rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may have to give to him that needeth.
So you working and not stealing from somebody, you don't have to look over your shoulder. You don't have to worry about somebody stealing what you stole. You don't have to worry about evil consequences coming towards you because you're working. And also it says working with your hands. Get a trade. Find something that you can do. Because if you thought about stealing and killing, there's other things that you can do that can provide for your family. Now, get Sirach chapter 7 and verse 15. Because a lot of us, we hate working. We hate getting up in the morning. We hate the long hours. We hate our boss. We hate everything about work. But it's needful. And what it said in Ephesians was that it's going to be able to provide for the people that need you or need something. So let's say you do get a trade. You start your own business and you learn the skill very well. Well, you put yourself in a position to employ others that was just like yourself. Read that in Sirach, chapter 7 and verse 15.
The book of Sirach, chapter 7, verse 15. Hate not laborious work.
So it says, hate not laborious work. Read.
Hate not laborious work, neither husbandry. which the Most High hath ordained.
So when did the Most High ordain us laborers work? Go to Genesis. Genesis chapter 2, I believe it is. I don't think I have it written down. If I do, it's on the other page. It's Genesis chapter 3. Yes.
Genesis chapter 3
and 19.
Verse 19. Verse 19.
Yep.
In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground.
So we're going to have a lifetime of working. Read.
Till thou return unto the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return.
So go back to Sirach chapter 7 and verse 15.
Sirach chapter 7, verse 15. Hate not laborers' work.
Because you not hating laborers' work, you're not going to get out of it. We all got to do our part in our society, in this society, to help the next generation. Read on.
Hate not laborers' work, neither husbandry.
Husbandry going into farming. Read.
Which the Most High hath ordained.
So this is another punishment or another thing that the Most High placed on us so we can provide for ourselves in these times and the times that was before and after us. Get Sirach chapter 33 and verse 17. Sirach 33 and verse 17. And like it said in Ephesians, Sirach is going to say the same thing. 33 and verse 17.
The book of Sirach, chapter 33 and verse 17. Consider that I labored not for myself only.
Because we're not doing all these works for ourselves. It's for the next generation. It's for the next person beside you. It's for that person who can't provide for his family and he wants to go steal or rob or kill or commit other sins against his own people, because we're not, for the most part, we're not doing that against the other nations. It's harming ourselves. So consider that when you work, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're an example for the people that are around you. Read.
Consider that I labor not for myself only, but for all them that seek learning.
So the labor that this is talking about in this gospel, because we are, read the next verse. It's going to say it.
Verse 18. Hear me, O ye great men of the people, and hearken with your ears, ye rulers of the congregation.
See, it's talking to the rulers of the congregation. We have to set that example to what the next generation has to be. They have to see our works, our labors, and strive for those same labors. Right now, our kids, they want to be basketball players. They want that easy, quick money. They want to just be general of 1,000. They want to be elder of 1,000,000. And they ain't put in the works just to get that title. Read on.
Verse 18. Hear me, O ye great men of the people, and hearken with your ears, ye rulers of the congregation. Give not thy son and wife, thy brother and friend, power over thee while thou livest, and give not thy goods to another, lest it repent thee.
And this is going into the fact of you giving more than what you can give out. And when we talk about alms, it's telling us how to budget, how to give me some words. I'm thinking of this book. I didn't want to. It's The Richest Man in Babylon. So pretty much this guy, he came up to his friend. His friend is a chariot maker. And the friend asked him for like 2 pieces of silver or something like that. Whatever the currency name was for them in that time. But he was like, listen, if I give you my 2 pieces of silver, I ain't going to have nothing else for me. It's more than what I can give. So this is what this is saying. Read it again.
Verse 19. Give not thy son and wife, thy brother and friend, power over thee while thou livest, and give not thy goods to another, lest it repent thee.
And it's talking about that when Christ was talking about don't let your left hand or your right hand envy the other when you give alms, meaning that you're mad because you gave it because you wanted to do something else with it. Don't give your labor or your time to somebody that you really didn't want to give up that time and that labor to. Read.
And thou entreat for the same again.
So now you have beef with this person, like you really agitated, like when you gonna pay me back? I gave you the money yesterday. You said you was gonna pay me back on this day. Now you having hatred towards this brother because you needed what you gave out. Read.
And thou entreat for the same again. Verse 20. As long as thou livest and hast breath in thee, give not thyself over to any. For better it is that thy children seek to thee.
So this part is going into how the kids will be lending money to the adults, taking care of the adults when they're just kids. Like your mom putting the cable, the electric, all those things in your name. She done bought a whole car in your name, messed up your entire credit. So when it's time for you to get a family, your credit messed up because of what your parents did to you. Read.
As long as thou livest and hast breath in thee, give not thyself over to any. For better it is that thy children should seek to thee, than that thou shouldest stand to their courtesy. In all thy works, keep to thyself the preeminence.
So you gotta be the head man of your household. You can't be looking for the wife to take care of you unless you were in a position that Tobit was in, which we're gonna read later. That's a totally different subject when you get older and your kids are now taking care of you, but it's based off of what you provided for them, leaving an inheritance. That's why we read, you don't labor for yourself only. You got a family and a nation to support. Read on.
Verse 22. In all thy works, keep to thyself the preeminence. Leave not a stain in thine honor.
See, when we die, it's like, man, you remember that dude, Bobby? Man, he owed me $5. He owed you $5. He owed me $5 too, man. That dude ain't nothing. He always owing money. He borrowed. He never paid it back. He had a bad gambling problem. We know where his money went. It was the alcohol. He spent it on women. That's a bad name that you leaving towards yourself. And it's named amongst our people. And to the leaders that this chapter is talking about, is not supposed to be named among us, that we're leaving behind this name that this dude always was taking, never giving. He never did anything for anybody. And now, and just another point, when we die, we leave a bill. The kids, the family, they got to figure out how to bury you, take care of all your debt, and figure out where your clothes and all your possessions is going to go. That's not how we want to go out as a people. We don't want to leave that burden and bill on the next generation when they can't even stay ground level to where they at. Read on.
Verse 23. At the time when thou shalt end thy days and finish thy life, distribute thine inheritance.
So it's for us to distribute everything that we have to who we needed to go to. That's called order, something that black people ain't used to. Blacks, Hispanics, we are not used to order. Go to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 10, and we're going to read verse 18. Because there's a spirit that comes with this type of person. And Ecclesiastes is going to name it. Chapter 10 and verse 18.
Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 13. 18?
18.
18. By much slothfulness, the building decayeth.
So when you don't take care of your stuff, guess what? Things are going to start to go down. You're not going to be in the position that you will wish that you were in because of your slothfulness. Or you pass that slothfulness down to the next generation. They see that you wasn't about nothing, so guess what? They don't believe that they can be about nothing. Read on.
By much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through.
You see stuff going wrong, and here it is. You sitting still like, yeah, it'll fix itself. The Lord will bless me. You know, it'll come. Now I'm just waiting on that check. When that check hit, man, I'll take care of everything. You got to go out and get it. You got to be about your business. Read on.
Verse 19. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things.
And in a Christian's mind, when we speak about the Bible, yeah, money is the root of all evil. No, it's your love of it. It's your idolatry of money that makes it evil. But money has its power, and you have to use that power to your advantage and not your disadvantage. And when it says that it answers all things, you can't buy a house, a car, food. shelter. You can't get these things unless you have enough money, unless you have money or you're making money.
This is a book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7 and verse 7. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad.
So typically we use this to say the conditions that we're in. But when we in a lower state, we like, man, I know I'm better than this, man. I can do this, I can do this. But the money, it just ain't flowing. Read.
Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart.
So a lot of times we don't understand how that gift destroys a heart. And I'm going to put it like this. A lot of times people be needing help, but they don't plan for the help. It becomes an inconvenience for them that they don't recognize that the help was to get you a jump start. It wasn't supposed to push you back to where you're dependent on the help. There's a scripture. I didn't write it down, but it's talking about if a man lean on another man's house, if he falls, what would happen to that man that was leaning on the house? If y'all figure out where I'm looking, what I'm talking about, get that for me at some point in the class. But that's what I'm discussing. Go ahead and finish reading.
Verse 7. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof.
Because a lot of times when we start something, it's difficult. It's a challenge. It's like an uphill battle starting something new. It's the fears, it's the anxiety. You don't understand it. You're in a new environment, and you just want it to end. Read.
Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. And the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Verse 9. Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger resteth in the bosom of fools.
Read.
Say not thou, what is the cause that the former days were better than these?
Read.
For thou dost not require wisely concerning this.
Inquire.
For thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this.
Read.
Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun.
So wisdom is good with an inheritance. The skills that you have, the understanding that you have is good when somebody can pass it down to you and give you more on what you have. Read.
Wisdom is good with an inheritance.
It gives you that advantage. That's how you create generational wealth, was with the understanding of how things go. And it said with an inheritance. Now you can build on what somebody else has already laid the foundation on. You have the wisdom and experience of what you're doing in the environment that you're in with somebody that's already got it started for you. Read.
And by it there is profit to them that see the sun.
So it'll be profitable to you. Read.
For wisdom is a defense.
So having wisdom, having understanding, that's scriptural, because the scriptures say it. I think it's Paul's writing. Yeah, in Paul's writings, let me see where it's at. Hold on.
The book of Romans, chapter 3 and verse 1. What advantage then hath the Jew?
So it's saying, what advantage do we have as Israelites? And what I'm saying is, why I'm getting this is because if you can read and get the understanding and wisdom out of this Bible, there is nothing that we can't do as a people. Christ said that we can move mountains. And if you surely believe that, it can happen. I've seen it with my very own eyes. And we ain't talking about physical mountains. We're talking about heavy burdens, things that oppress us, situational issues that we think are impossible to get through. That's the advantage that we have, having the God that we have. Read.
What advantage then hath the Jew? Or what profit is there of circumcision?
So Paul is asking, what's the purpose? What advantage is it being an Israelite? Read.
Much every way.
Read.
Chiefly because unto them were committed the oracles of God.
It's based off the fact that God gave us the commandments, his love and his protection. He gave us everything. He set up our government. We didn't have to do anything but serve and obey. That's the advantage that we have. So the things in society, it just comes easy and natural to us. When we see it and touch it and do it, and do it for a while, that experience just grows and we become very articulate, fluent in the things that we learn. Go back to Ecclesiastes, and we were at verse 12.
It's 10 and 12.
7 and 12.
7 and 12.
Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 12.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7 and verse 12. For wisdom is a defense.
So wisdom is a defense. It has its own power too. It can protect you. Read.
For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense.
Then it says money is a defense. It has its power. It can defend you. Defend you from what? Defend you from being out on the streets, under a bridge. It can defend you from trouble, ailments. You go to the hospital, guess what? You got a bill. Read on.
And money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it.
Read.
Verse 13. Consider the work of God. For who can make that straight which he hath made crooked? In the day of prosperity be joyful.
So when you're doing good, be joyful. Do whatever it is that you desire that's lawful. Read.
In the day of prosperity be joyful. But in the day of adversity consider.
Consider. Where did you go? What should you be doing better? What could you have done better? What are you doing now? What put you in this position? And that's going back to surely oppression maketh the wise man mad, because you know you're better. Why are you in the state that you're in right now? Read on.
God also hath set the one over against the other.
So he set adversity towards what's the
prosperity?
Adversity and prosperity. Yeah, that's the word. Prosperity and adversity. He set it against one another. We have to experience both because he gave us the kingdom. We didn't have to do anything for it, but we sinned. And now we have to work 10 times harder just to get it. Read.
Go
ahead.
God also hath set the one over against the other, to the end that man should find nothing after him.
So go to Genesis chapter 14 and verse 21.
The book of Genesis chapter 14 verse 21. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons and take the goods to thyself.
So what we're reading right here is Abram at the time was his name, which is Abraham. He went to war in the battles with the 5 kings, Sodom and Gomorrah. And he went to go get Lot back. But in this war, this king wanted to make a deal with him and is going back into what we were reading in Sirach about no one having a preeminence under you. Our forefathers were smart. They understood the power that a man could have over you if he did you a favor. That's going also back into Ecclesiastes 7 about a gift destroyeth the heart. So read that again.
Verse 21. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons and take the goods to thyself.
So he said, I'll take the men, the people that you captured. I'll take those as slaves, but you can keep the goods, all the other profits that come from war. Read.
And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lift up my hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich.
So Abraham was like, listen, I don't want anything that you can claim as yours, because you're going to say that you made me. You're going to ask me, you're going to come back and probably ask me for a favor that I can't deliver. And now we're going to be at odds. Now we're going to be enemies because I can't or I won't do what you want me to do. And you're going to hang that over my head. So our forefather Abraham said, nah, everything that's yours is yours. You keep it. Was that 23?
Yes, sir.
So go to Proverbs chapter 13 and 22. Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 22.
The book of Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 22.
And this is what our forefather Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did for their sons. And this is what the Most High gave to us. He left an inheritance for us. Read.
A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children.
this is something that we ain't heard in the projects and the hoods of the slums and the ghettos. What we leave is bad credit for our kids and bills and stress that they lived through their entire life while you were alive. It's time to reverse that curse and leave behind something for our children. A good name, a good man is going to leave these things. A good mother is going to leave these things in place for their children so they can grow and flourish as a people and not be just punching a clock, having to figure it out for themselves. I have to, our people, especially with, what's his name? The football, Kaepernick. The dude that was hating on Kaepernick on the news. He left it saying, like, this is the only way our people can succeed is if they're in the entertainment business. There's no other way. But the Bible is telling us work with our hands. We're good at everything. Look at the nation before us. Who's building all the skyscrapers, the housing, the communities? Who's building all of this? Northern Kingdom. Who has the best skill in art? We make dang near everything for this society. Everything comes for us. They use the land in Mexico for gardening, for farming, for that industry. We make the best music. We make the best stories. Everything comes from us. So why don't we have anything to show for it? Read that again.
Verse 22. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of a sinner is laid up for the just.
So now we're going to look at our forefather Tobit in chapter 1. We're going to start at chapter 1 and verse 13.
The book of Tobit, chapter 1 and verse 13.
And we're going to see what he did for his family and the tribulations that he was going through in that time. Read.
And the Most High gave me grace and favor before Elamanassar, so that I was his purveyor.
So a purveyor is he pretty much scouts prices to buy for the king's palace. Things that the king wanted to do, he pretty much goes out and what do you call it? He pretty much window shops for everything, brings the price back to him, and it's pretty much hospitality and being a treasurer at once to see what the king needs, how much it costs, and bring it back to the king. Read. So that was his job. That wasn't a small job. Read.
And the Most High gave me grace and favor before Shalmaneser, so that I was his purveyor. And I went into Media and left in trust with Gabriel, the brother of Gabrias, and rages a city of Media, 10 talents of silver.
So what Tobit did was he left an investment, 10 talents of silver with this man Gabriel. So remember Gabriel and these 10 talents that he left in a trust. It's going to come up later. Read.
Now when Shalmaneser was dead, Sennacherib his son raised in his stead, whose estate was troubled, that I could not go into Media. And then in the time of Shalmaneser, I gave many alms to my brethren.
So Tobit was working. And at this point, he got laid off because of the change of rulership. Read.
And in the time of Shalmaneser, I gave many alms to my brethren, and gave my bread to the hungry.
And this is going back into I labor not for myself, because at this time, we're in captivity to the Persian and Medes. So we're being oppressed as a nation. That means that we're getting cut off from the things that we need, the things that we're used to as a nation of having. We have to go get it from our oppressors. It's a middleman now. We don't just get it straight from the Most High God. We don't just go out and build things with our hands. We have to get permission now. It's like, can I get this job? Can I work here? We get an allowance. And that's another point. Because when speaking to people about money and finances, and you ask a grown-up and children about allowances, especially women can't stand the fact that you'll ask them, you get an allowance? Your husband gives you an allowance? Your boyfriend, your man gives you an allowance? What kind of crap is that? Well, he gets an allowance from the so-called white man. He's allowed to make $3,200K for his salary. That's called an allowance. That's how much you're allowed to make at this job or in this industry. So everybody gets an allowance. And I was asking this question to the kids in the Boys to Men program. about do they get an allowance? And I was asking everybody that was in the room. You know, some of the kids, they raise their hand, but the men, they like, I'm like, so you got a job, right? It's like, yeah, so you get an allowance. That's exactly what it is. $10.50 is your allowance per hour. Per week, you make such and such money. So in this captivity, yeah, you get an allowance. I don't know why you feel disrespected because the so-called white man gives you an allowance. So you're pretty much being treated like a kid here. We had it good with the Most High to where we was plentiful. We didn't have to ask for an allowance. Read.
And in the time of Shalmaneser, I gave many alms to my brethren, and gave my bread to the hungry, and my clothes to the naked.
So while he's working, he's still trying to provide for the poverty of his nation. Read. And at top that he got laid off. Read.
And if I saw any of my nation dead or cast about the walls of Nineveh, I buried him.
So it's a law to bury our dead in the same day. It was against the law in Nineveh. So he was breaking the law and he had a high position. At this point in time, he got laid off. But during his whole time, he was breaking the law for the sake of his nation, to keep the laws. So remember, those works are important and it's going to pay off later on for Tobit. Read.
And if the king Sennacherib had slain any, when he was come and fled from Judea, I buried them privily. For in his wrath he killed many, but the bodies were not found when they were sought for of the king. And when one of the Ninevites went and complained of me to the king, that I buried them and hid myself, understanding that I was sought for to be put to death.
So he was risking his life to make sure that he took care of his nation. That's the mind state that we got to have with our labors and our works and this truth and in our everyday life, that our life is in danger for what we do and for what we represent. The people hate us because we represent the Most High. They want to continue in the mentality of what Satan has them in, so-called white men, this society. Read. And not only that, there was a detail that went out to see how many Israelites were slain. And that report wasn't getting complete because Tobit was stopping it. Read.
Understanding that I was sought for to be put to death, I withdrew myself for fear. Then all my goods were forcibly taken away.
Now he was robbed. Read.
Neither was there anything left me beside my wife Anna and my son Tobias.
So Tobit was going through some things and still hiding to be put to death. Read.
And there passed not 55 days before two of his sons killed him. And
all right, so now it's a change in power. His sons killed him, and now there's a new king. Jump down to chapter 2 and verse 1.
Chapter 2 and verse 1. Now when I was come home again, and my wife Anna was restored unto me with my son Tobias in the feast of Pentecost, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks, there was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat. And when I saw an abundance of meat, I said to my son, go and bring what poor man soever thou find out of our brethren, who is mindful of the Lord, and lo, I tarry for thee.
So back what we read in Ecclesiastes about be joyful when you're in a good estate. But we've seen all the things that happened to Tobias. But now it's the Feast of Pentecost, and he's like, listen, I have a place, I have my family, I got something to eat. I'm be joyous for the Most High's high holy days. Go get somebody else that's less fortunate in these times so he may eat, so he may enjoy the feast of the Most High. That's the type of spirit that we got to have in this captivity. Jump to verse 11.
Verse 11. And my wife Anna...
Hold up, I skipped. Hold on. Finish reading down.
All right, verse
3. Yeah, that's what I want.
Verse 3. But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled and is cast out in the marketplace.
So one of our brothers was choked out. He was in the marketplace and he got choked out and put to death. Read.
Then before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun.
So he got the body like he's always done. He got the body, he hid it. Read.
And took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness, remembering that prophecy of Amos, as he said, your feast shall be turned into mourning, and all of your mirth into lamentation.
Read.
Therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went and made a grave and buried him.
So he did what he always did. Once the sun went down and the coast was clear, he buried the body. But something else is going to happen to Tobit during all of these times. Read on.
Verse 8. But my neighbors mocked me and said, this man is not yet afraid to be put to death for this matter, who fled away, and yet lo, he burieth the dead again.
So they mocking him, talking about you risking your life for all of this. Just do you'll be safe. Read.
The same night also I returned from the burial, and slept by the wall of my courtyard, being polluted, and my face was uncovered. And I knew not that there were sparrows in the wall. And mine eyes being opened, the sparrows muted warm dung into mine eyes.
So at this point, Tobit became blind. Sparrow, I can't even say it. That's the word. I was looking for a nice word. So a sparrow defecated in his eye, and it made him blind. So now he's in a position to where he can't work. So remember, he had the 10 pieces of silver that he put in a trust. He was burying dead bodies. Then he got laid off, robbed. And during this time, he was still providing for his people, giving alms, doing whatever he can to help the poverty of our people in his own conditions. Not only that, his son seen a man get choked out and killed in the marketplace. And as he's mourning for our people in this captivity, something else goes wrong. This is what we see in our everyday life, to where it's like you do 2 good things and then 5 bad things happen. You take 2 steps forward and then you got to take 10 steps backwards. This is what's happening to Tobit. So jump to 11.
Verse 11. And my wife Anna did take women's work to do. And when she had sent them home to the owners, they paid her wages and gave her also besides a kid.
So process of time is going on. His wife took a job. Now he knows how much she makes, just so they can survive and do the things that they need to do with their life, take care of the family. She's the breadwinner at this point because he can't work. So when it says they paid her wages and gave her also beside a kid, it was an issue with that because that's more than what she was supposed to make. And Tobit is gonna explain it further down in Tobit. Read.
And when she had sent them home to the owners, they paid her wages and gave her also besides a kid. And when it was in my house and began to cry, I said unto her, from whence is this kid? Is it not stolen? Render it to the owners.
And that goes back into Ephesians. When our back is against the wall and things are hard, because his only mind would go to that if they didn't have everything that they needed. They reading this, you can tell that they were barely getting by. So if she got something that wasn't deserving, his mind's like, listen, I know we're doing bad. You had to steal this because we can't afford it. And that goes back to what we were reading in Ephesians. Him that steals, steal no more. Work with your hands. Well, that's what he's thinking. Like, you had to have stole this because we're being oppressed. We don't have it all. Read.
I said unto her, from whence is this kid? Is it not stolen? Render it to the owners. For it is not lawful to eat anything that is stolen. But she replied upon me, it was given for a gift more than wages. Howbeit, I did not believe her, but bade her render it to the owners. And I was abashed at her. But she replied upon me, where are thine alms and thy righteous deeds? Behold, thou and all thy works are known.
So that's what I was going back with the title, have faith in alms. The things that you're doing righteously, your everyday pattern of that righteous act, people are seeing it. The labors that you do, people are going to see it, and they're going to repay you for the good name that you have. So now, go to Acts chapter 10 and verse 1. We're going to read about this account. I forgot the man's name. There you go, Cornelius. We're going to read about Cornelius and how his prayer, his alms, reached the heavens. Chapter 10 and verse 1.
The book of Acts, chapter 10 and verse 1. There was a certain man in Sisera called Cornelius.
I think I got a real problem with people's names. Like it was right there. And people's names, it just escaped me all the time. I'd be looking people dead in the face like, I know it. I just can't remember your name. I used to do it to Officer Saul all the time. I just can't remember your name. Go ahead.
There was a certain man in Sisera called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band.
So he was in the military, read.
A devout man, and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people.
And with the works that he was doing, he was still providing for his people in the Roman captivity, read.
Which gave much alms to the people and prayed to God always. He saw in a vision evidently about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of God coming into him and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? And he said unto him, Thy prayers and thine alms are come up for a memorial before God.
So like I was saying earlier, a lot of times we don't get the gratitude, the appreciation that we think that we want or need here on this earth, but the Most High, he sees everything. So the alms and the works that you're doing for your nation, the Most High sees it, and he's going to repay it back to you more than what any man on this earth can do. Or he's going to use the people around you to give you the things that you need when you need them. It's and I forgot that the saying in church. They said God is always on time. How you say it? You know what I'm talking about? I'm gonna say it wrong. Never late, but he ain't when you. He's always here when you need him, but he ain't. I forgot. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
He ain't on time, but
Hey, them things be getting me all the time. But y'all know what I'm talking about. Get Tobit chapter 4 now, and verse 7. Let me see if I want verse 7. Start at verse 1.
Tobit, the book of Tobit, chapter 4 and verse 1. In that day, Tobit remembered the money which he had committed to Gabriel in rages of Media.
So now more time has gone past, and now he's going to go collect on that those 10 pieces of silver that he gave back in Nineveh. Read, Media.
And said with himself, I have wished for death.
So he knows he's about to die in some time. Read.
Wherefore do I not call for my son Tobias?
So now he's finna pass down what he's earned in his life down to his son. This is him giving his inheritance. That's why he set the 10 pieces of silver aside so it'll multiply. Read.
Wherefore do I not call for my son Tobias, that I may signify to him of the money before I die? And when he had called him, he said, My son, when I am dead, bury me. And despise not.
So this is supposed to happen. We're supposed to get a will. We're supposed to get something in writing and signed legally to pass these things down to the next of kin that's going to be responsible for everything that you are taking care of. That's how it's supposed to be. Read.
My son, when I am dead, bury me. And despise not thy mother, but honor her all the days of thy life, and do that which shall please her, and grieve her not.
So he's saying, like, when I die, you're going to bury me here, like this, in the manner of the custom of the Jews, the Israelites, and you're going to take care of your mother as if I was taking care of your mother, but you're still her son. Don't cause her problems like you rule over her. Read.
Verse 4. Remember, my son, that she saw many dangers for thee when thou wast in her womb, and when she is dead, bury her by me in one grave.
So when your mom dies, you're going to bury her next to me. He's giving him instruction on what he needs to do with what he's entrusting him with. Read.
Verse 5. My son, be mindful of the Lord our God all thy days, and let not thy will be set to sin.
So this is the same thing that King David was telling King Solomon before he passed. Read.
And let not thy will be set to sin, or to transgress his commandments,
Uh-huh.
to do uprightly all thy life long, and follow not the way of unrighteousness. For if thou deal truly, thy doing shall prosperously succeed to thee, and to them that live justly.
So after all Tobit went through, this is the wisdom that he got, that the Most High is going to take care of his people. As long as you keep his commandments, take care of your people, give alms, and have a good name amongst your people, the Most High is going to take care of you. You're going to be prosperous in all that you're doing. It's not saying that you're going to be wealthy and rich. It means that you're going to be able to do the things that's necessary for your life. Read.
And follow not the ways of unrighteousness. For if thou deal truly, thy doing shall prosperously succeed to thee, and to all them that live justly. Verse 7, give alms of thy substance. And when thou givest alms, let not thine eye be envious. Neither turn thy face from any poor, and the face of God shall not be turned away from thee.
So if you take care of your people, God is going to take care of you. That's love thy neighbor as thyself. Read.
If thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly.
So to know if you have an abundance, you have to be keeping up with your budget. Else, you won't know how much you can give. And that's what make people envious. Like, man, I gave this dude $5, man. I need that to put in my tank. That's why you mad, because you're not keeping up with how much you're allowed to spend. Everybody has a budget. It's up to you to understand your budget and what you can do. That's going to alleviate that covetous spirit that you have when you do help somebody or somebody has something that you don't. Read.
If thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly. If thou have but a little, be not afraid to give according to that little.
So if you just decided to give 10% of whatever you earn, say you earned $100, and you was like, okay, 10% of that I'm going to give. That's $10.
Verse 8, if thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly. If thou have but a little, be not afraid to give according to that little.
So let's say that you had $100 and you decide to give 10% each time out of that $100. Well, that's $10 that you're giving. Say that you made $1,000 this time and you're still going to give that 10%. Well, that's $100. So that's how you keep up with it. If you decide 10% and you have a little, well, give that little. That's just $10. That's something that you're giving towards your people. If you make $1,000, well, look, that's $100 out of that 10%. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how you know how to keep up with your own budget and what you can and can't give. That's going to alleviate that covetous spirit that's going to cause you to want to steal, kill, to get it or get it back by understanding your budget and what you're allowed to spend based off the allowance that you're given. I want to emphasize the word allowance to adults, because most of us don't have a clue, and we think that it's so tedious to pay attention to what we're spending, what we're bringing in, and what we're putting out. It has to be balanced. There has to be order in our budgeting and the way that we spend, our mentality. Esau puts out so many commercials, new products, things of that nature, and that instant gratification to make ourselves happy from the state that we're in, it drives us every single time. So whenever you get the money, I'm like, I'm going to spend it on this, I'm going to spend it on this, I'm going to spend it on this. And before you even see the check, you didn't spend it on every single thing. You're like, man, I can't even pay my rent. I can't pay my light bill. I still got to put gas in the car. Well, you should have thought about those things and planned it out so you can do it. Me personally, I'll window shop for about 3-6 months. I have like $100 and something I won't cost $30. I'll be like, you know what? I don't even need it. I'll be good. I'll get it next week. 3 months go by, they done made it, remade it, and it's cheaper. I'm going to go ahead and get it. I didn't lose anything. So that instant gratification spirit that we have, Esau, he just keeps remaking the same thing over and over and rebranding it and pushing it into our face. It's no reason you can get whatever you want in your time. But our main focus is to take care of our people in the condition that we're in. Read on.
If thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly. If thou have but a little, be not afraid to give according to that little. For thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity.
Because times are going to get harder. You're providing for your nation. And if you provide for your nation is going to see like, hey, that's a man that's deserving to get funds back. It's basically a loan situation where here's a guy who he barely gives something and he expects more back from what he's given. It's not going to work like that. Read.
Verse 9, for thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity.
Because you might get sick. The car might break. Somebody might steal something that you need. Something may happen. So you got to put things away for yourself and your people. Because things are going to happen to us as a people. Read.
Because that alms do deliver from death.
And it does that. And you could be on your deathbed. You could have a injury that's more than what you have. And that's the power of money. That's why it answers all things. Read.
Because that alms do deliver from death, and suffer not to come into darkness. For alms is a good fruit unto all that give it.
A good what?
A good fruit. For alms is a good gift unto all that give it in the sight of the Most High. I don't know where I got fruit out of.
Yeah, I don't know where you got fruit from either. Get Sirach chapter 17. Sirach chapter 17 and verse 22. More on alms. Go ahead.
The book of Sirach chapter 17 and verse 22. The alms of a man is as a signet with him, and he will keep the good deeds of man as the apple of the eye, and give repentance to his sons and daughters.
Go to Sirach 12 and 3.
The book of Sirach chapter 12 and verse 3.
So giving alms gives you a good name, and it's going to show your kids the same patterns. Read.
There can no good come to him that is always occupied in evil. Nor to him that giveth no alms.
And it's bringing it to the same thing. If you don't have the heart to help people, how can you expect people to help you? Here it is that you got one person giving everything that they can possibly give, and you like, man, that's them. I ain't gonna do that, man. All I got is this little bit, man. I ain't gonna help these people. But then we see you got bottles, you got you got the new cell phone, you got the new tablet, you got the new watch, you got everything new, but you don't even provide for your people. You don't do nothing for your people. You stingy. So how do you expect for anything good to happen to you? That's why you're going to be consumed in all the things that you want because you're selfish. Read. Well, let me say it like this. The things that you want are going to consume you.
Sirach chapter 12 and verse 3. There can no good come to him that is always occupied in evil.
And this is that person he always got to look over his shoulder because he's always doing something wrong. Read.
Nor to him that giveth no alms.
And it's the same with a person that don't provide alms. Read.
Give to the godly man, and help not a sinner.
Because it's just you putting putting water into a bag with holes. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not helping him. He's going to do evil with the good that you gave him. So God said, don't help that man. Get Sirach chapter 29 and verse 12.
The book of Sirach chapter 29 and verse 12. Shut up alms in thy storehouse.
So a storehouse is pretty much a bank. That's where we store our food, our money, our possessions, like a bank. Read.
And it shall deliver thee from all affliction.
So the Most High is telling us to save because it's going to be a time to where that saving is going to pay off. King Solomon was like, look at the ant, thou slugger. Why? Because the ant, he works all through the warm seasons to prepare for the cold seasons, to store everything that they need so they don't have to go out to the cold and freeze or starve. That's how we're supposed to be as a nation. That's how we're supposed to be stocking up for the life that we're in right now in this captivity, especially with the inflation that's going on in America and the trading that's going on, that the ships that stuck out into sea. Things are high right now. Read.
Shut up thine alms in thy storehouses, and it shall deliver thee from all affliction. It shall fight for thee against thine enemies, better than a mighty shield and strong spear.
That's the power of what money is supposed to do. The love of it isn't what we're seeking. It's the protection. It's what it provides for us. Now, get Sirach chapter 40 and verse 24. 40 and verse 24.
The book of Sirach, chapter 40 and verse 24. Brethren and help are against time of trouble.
So you're going to need people. Read.
But alms shall deliver more than them both.
Because money answers all things. It's only so much that a pat on the back and a good job and I'm here for you, bro. And to pick up a couch or two is only going to go so far. Eventually, you're going to need financial help. And that's why money answers all things. Sometimes you're not going to have it and you're going to need money. Read.
Gold and silver make the foot stand sure, but counsel is esteemed above them both. Riches and strength lift up the heart, but the fear of the Lord is above them both.
And above all of that is the fear of God. And if you don't have that, then none of those things are going to exist. You won't exist. Get Sirach 3 and 30. Sirach chapter 3 and verse 30. Yeah, that was a big jump. Go ahead.
The book of Sirach chapter 3 and verse 30. Water will quench a flaming fire, and alms maketh an atonement for sins.
And not only does it answer all things, it also answers for your sins. It's things that you hadn't gotten right or it's things that you're doing ignorantly. Alms covers those ignorant sins that you have. You still got to fix them. I'm not saying that you have a license to sin, but that's what alms covers. Go to Exodus. We're going to read about our forefather Joseph in his calamities in Egypt. And what happened to him, he was sold into slavery by his brothers and then thrown in prison for the assumption that he was sleeping with the Pharaoh's wife. And while he was in prison, he helped a few men get out with the dreams that he had. 41 and 25.
The book of Genesis, chapter 41 and verse 25. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do.
So what's happening in this is Pharaoh had a dream, and no one could interpret this dream. And Pharaoh kept asking and demanding. And finally, one of the guys that was in prison with Joseph, remembered Joseph, interpreted his dream, and it came out right. So Pharaoh's like, go get him. I want to meet him. So now we're seeing Pharaoh with Joseph and this dream.
Verse 26. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one, and the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine.
So what the Most High showed him was that there's going to be 7 good years of crops and cattle and all those things. But then there's going to be another 7 years to where there's going to be a famine. And what we read in Exodus is like, hey, listen, when the times are good, be joyful. And that's what the people would have done had not Joseph interpreted this dream for Pharaoh, that they would have enjoyed all those good 7 years and had nothing to show for it. Read.
Verse 28. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt.
And this also goes back to I labor not for myself, because had Joseph be like, man, they threw me in prison, man, I ain't finna do this, man, I was wrong, I'm innocent. If he would have had that same Negro attitude that we have today, he would have killed himself and his brothers that were back in his homeland. So this fed the entire earth on that side of the world at that period of time for him doing this. And that's why I labor not for myself. Read.
Verse 30. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt.
So it's going to be so bad that people are going to forget how good the market was. Shipments was coming in on time. They had plenty. Nobody was lacking anything. It was a rich time for Egypt. But this famine was going to be so bad that it was going to be forgotten. Read.
And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt. And the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following. For it shall be very grievous.
Jump to keep reading from 32.
Verse 32. And for that dream was doubled unto Pharaoh. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this.
And notice he wasn't cocky. He was like, hey, listen, man. He wasn't like, man, listen, since I told you the dream, you got to set me up because, I know what I'm doing. No, he said he left Pharaoh with his power. He didn't take preeminence over the matter because Pharaoh still had the power to throw his behind back in jail. All right, we don't need you. Bye, nigga. Thanks for your advice. If he would have been pompous, but he's like, hey, listen, find you somebody that you trust to set over this task to make sure it gets done. He didn't put himself first. Read.
Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years.
So what he's doing is he's budgeting the crops and everything. So he said take a 5th of it, or 20% of everything that comes in. You're going to take 20% of that and put it to the side. And everything else, you're going to let the people have it and enjoy it for the markets and everything like that. Read.
In the 7 plenteous years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be forestalled to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art.
So the wisdom that he got from Jacob, he used it and he saved his people and the people of Egypt. Read.
Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word, all my people be ruled.
And because of his wisdom and his meekness towards the king, he was given a job. He was second in command in Egypt. Was that to verse 40?
Verse 40, I'm finishing out now.
All right.
Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt.
So now we're going to jump to Jacob and Jacob's troubles with Laban in Genesis chapter 31 and started verse 1. So basically, our forefather, he worked 7 years for Rachel. Laban lied and gave him the oldest daughter. So he worked another 7 years for Rachel. So 14 years he worked for his wife. He hard labor. He was taking care of the flocks for his uncle Laban. And Laban kept lying to him and changing things. So eventually he got frustrated. And the Most High called him to go back home. But the Most High blessed Jacob in his righteousness and did something to Laban for his unrighteousness. And we're going to read the account.
Genesis chapter 31 and verse 1. And he heard the words of Laban's sons saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's.
So basically, Laban's sons is saying that Jacob stole from him. And what he's saying is that they made a deal that if the flock look like this, it's yours. But if they look like this, it's mine. And what the Most High did was the ones that were Jacob's, he made them very good looking, very plentiful. Yeah, healthy, that's the word. And the ones for Laban, not so healthy. Read.
And of that which was our father's hath he gotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before. But the God of my father hath been with me.
So he's establishing, are you my wives? Or are you still your father's daughters? Are you going to be with me? Or are you going to stay here with your father? Because your father is pretty angry with me and he might try to cause me harm. It's time for us to go. So either you go with me or you stay with him. Read.
And ye know that with all my power have I served your father.
So he did a lot of laborer's work for his dad for what he has. Read.
And your father hath deceived me.
Your father lied. Read.
And changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me.
So y'all are my witnesses that I did everything right according to your father. Read.
If he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages.
So if your father would have said the speckled, that's what you can keep. Read.
Then all the cattle that bear speckled, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ring strake shall be thy hire.
So the ring strake ones will be yours. Read.
Then bear all the cattle ring straight.
But he said that all the I believe he said all the ring straight was going to be Jacob's, and all the what was it? All the speckled. All the speckled was going to be mine, and all the ring straight was going to be Laban's. Ring speckled would be Jacob's, and the I forgot again. Ring straight. The speckled would be Jacob's, and the ring straights, I think, would be Jacob's. It's back in verse 30 where they make the agreement. Read.
Verse 9. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream. And behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring straight, speckled, and gristled.
So the ring striker was
gristled.
Those were the ones that he gave Laban.
And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes and see. All the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring straight, speckled, and gristled. For I have seen all that Laban have done unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now, if thou shalt afflict...
Now arise.
Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return to the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house?
So they said, we going with you. They going back to Jacob's land and be with him, because they saw what their father did, and that's the repercussion that he got from God, and he wasn't permitted to do anything to Jacob. And that's what I'm trying to convey with the message of just do right. People are going to do you wrong in this world, even amongst your own people. This is his uncle. And we just read about how Joseph, well, we didn't read it, but Joseph was sold to the Egyptians. And his brothers had a part in that. So your own people are going to do harm to you, do things to you. But if you keep your righteousness and do what you know you're supposed to do as a servant of God, he's going to repay you back for for your labors, for your works. Now, get Proverbs chapter 31 and verse 15. We're going to read about a account from King Solomon's mom and how she was. She didn't have to lift a finger. She was queen in the castle. Her son was named to be king. So she didn't have to lift a finger. She didn't have to do anything but be the queen. But let's see how she treated her people and what she did for her household. Read.
Verse 15.
Yes, sir.
Proverbs chapter 31 and verse 15. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her house, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens.
So she got up before the sun would rise, and she would feed her entire household, not just her kids or the things that pertain to her. She also fed the maidens. Read.
She considereth a field.
So it says she considereth a field, meaning that she's seeing if she can purchase a field. She's seeing what she can do with the money that she has. Read.
She considereth a field and buyeth.
And if the terms was right and is based off of how she wants to use it, she bought it. Read.
With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard.
So with her works and her labors, she planted a vineyard. Now with this vineyard, guess what? She can make wine. She has fruit now. She can provide for her family something that she's done with her hands. Then this is a sister. That means that she has knowledge of real estate. That's what we'll call it. That's what we call it today, real estate. And she's running a business is what she's doing. Read.
Verse 17.
On top of that, she's a manager, or what we'll use in these terms. Read.
She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms.
She don't hate laborers' work. She do what she got to do to provide for her family. That's what this generation is missing. They become an independent woman and they end up by themselves and they have to stay in that condition. She ain't by herself. She has a husband and a family and she's still doing things to provide for her family. Read.
She girdeth her loins with strength and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night.
She's working hard, even at night. Not to mention that she just got up early before the sun came up. And she's going to bed late to make sure that she has a good name on her product. You know that it's coming from her because she's taking good care of what she has. Because if it's bad, it's going to come back on her household, her husband. Read.
Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff.
So she went out, and this is also a process of time. She went and looked at some land, said the land is good. The land is good, bought the land, and planted a vineyard. Not only that, she makes her own clothes. She sews. There you go. Read.
She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff.
Read.
She stretcheth out her hand to the poor.
And with what she has, she also takes care of her people. Read.
Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy.
Read.
She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet.
So she takes care of her family and her people. Now, go to Leviticus 26 and verse 3. I should have got this earlier, but we'll end on Leviticus 26 and verse 3. Show you what type of God we serve. Go ahead.
The book of Leviticus chapter 26 in verse 3. If ye walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season.
So God said, if you keep my commandments, you do what I tell you to do, I'll give you rain, meaning that our crops are going to flourish. We're going to have the things that we need so we can eat and have water to drink. Read.
Then I will give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase.
Not only will it grow, read,
and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. And your threshing shall reach unto the vintage.
It's going to be full of what you need, more than what you need. Not only that, read,
and the vintage shall reach unto the sowing time.
You're not going to lack. You're not going to wonder if the crops are not going to produce less. It's going to produce more than what throughout the season. You're not going to have to be like, oh, it's going to be a short season. The Most High is going to make sure that it grows throughout the entire season. So we're never lacking. Read.
And ye shall eat your bread to the full, and dwell in your land safely.
Not only will you be able to not have to work, not only will your crops produce throughout all the season, you won't have to worry about neighboring countries or people coming to steal you. You won't be afraid of protecting your assets. Read.
Verse 6. And I will give peace in the land. Read. And ye shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid.
We won't be oppressed. Read.
And I will rid evil beasts out of the land. Neither shall the sword go through your land.
No evil will touch us when we're in this state. Read.
And ye shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword.
Read.
And 5 of you shall chase 100.
So if anything does happen to us, we're going to have the strength because we're going to be well nourished to fight. Read.
And 5 of you shall chase 100.
And not only well nourished, we're going to be mentally sane and stable to focus on the things that's ahead of us, because the Most High is providing a good, safe, and nutritional balance for us, lifestyle for us. We're not thinking about, oh, man, the water's going to get cut off, man. I ain't got enough money for the electric. What are we going to do about food? We're not worried about all of these thoughts because the Most High has cleared all that away when we're keeping His commandments. We're not distracted with the problems of the world because the Most High is taking care of all of those things. He's pushed all of those things aside to where we're flourishing as a nation, and we don't have to worry about the things that we're worrying about here in America or wherever we're at in these captivities. Read.
And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight, and your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. For I will have respect unto you, and make you fruitful, and multiply you, and establish my covenant with you. And ye shall eat old store, and bring forth the old because of the new.
So we're not going to have to worry about nothing. We're going to be storing up so much food that we ain't going to have to worry about anything. We're going to always be provided for under the guides of the Most High. Right now, under the guides of our oppressor who hates us, he's not making sure that we're nourished and taken care of. This is not the man that we want to serve under or for. Read.
And ye shall eat old store, and bring forth the old because of the new. And I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul shall not abhor you. And I will walk among you, and will be your God, and ye shall be my people.
And that's what our labors in this truth are: taking care of our people, making sure that we provide for the poor, the needy, and have it in our character all together to provide, because the Most High, in the end, He's going to look out for these good deeds.
We used to scream black power while Heron was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.